Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country. Eric Cohen, Shane Dale, and a special guest this week that's going to stay with us for the whole show. He knows Arizona football better than actually Shane and I because he worked with them for so long. So Blair Willis, who is the former SID for the Arizona football and baseball teams, going to join us for the entire show. We have an extended buy or sell segment, and then we have, finally, Shane, some game picks. Really excited for that. So Blair, glad to have you here. Shane, of course, as always, big time show. It's week one. We finally made it, and I can't wait. So let's get right into it, guys. This is Buy or Sell presented by our friends at Ice Shaker. Go to iceshaker.com. Use promo code.
Blair will get you one next time.
We do need to get Blair one of those. Yes. Since he's the honorary guest host. Yes. Get your Ice Shaker, your Wildcat Country Ice Shaker. Go to iceshaker.com. Use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, and get $5 off. All right. Blair, I'm going to start with you for our first question. To win on Saturday, Arizona must limit San Diego State to under 200 yards rushing. Now, one stat, since I know you used to be the stat guy, I'm going to throw one in here for you. Since 2019, San Diego State's lost 9 games combined. In all of them, they had less than 200 yards rushing. So is that the magic number for Arizona to hold San Diego State to buy or sell?
Well, Eric and Shane, thanks for having me on. Shane tipped me off to this question earlier. He shared a few of these questions that you were going to have. I'm going to have to buy it, though, Eric, because, you give up 200 yards rushing, you don't typically win many football games. And that's been especially true for Arizona. I think it's 14 straight losses. I looked that up earlier today. The last win when allowing 200 yards was against UCLA in 2019. And I think it's only been like 4 wins in the last 6 or 7 years when you allow 200 yards rushing if you're the Wildcats. So it really goes down to controlling the line of scrimmage. That's something San Diego State did so well on both sides of the ball a year ago. And if this Arizona football team's going to be improved, it's going to need to be more physical up front. And on the defensive side, that starts with stopping the run. It's been a problem. So if Arizona can keep San Diego State maybe 150 below, that might be a pretty good number. And certainly 200 or more, that's going to be a tough day for the Wildcats if they can't hold San Diego State below that number.
Yeah, I'm going to buy it as well. I think it's an easy one to start off. Thanks for starting with an easy one, Eric. With that said, I guess this is only the second time in the last 12 years, and this is a remarkable stat, only the second time in the last 12 years that San Diego State doesn't have a 1,000-yard back returning to the roster. You combine that with 3 new starters on the offensive line, and Arizona might have a chance to, they have to hold them under 200, maybe even fewer than Blair's benchmark of 150. I think you have to make Braxton Burmeister, who's entering, I think, his 10th collegiate season, throw the football and beat you that way. And I like that scenario better. I like Arizona's secondary. They're not the best unit in the Pac-12, but they're not the worst by any means either. And we'll see if they have a pass rush too. But yeah, I think they have a decent chance to hold San Diego State to under 200, but certainly if it's 200 or approaches that they're done. They're toast.
Well, last year was a debacle. And, for me, obviously this is a buy, but I think the number has to be lower than 200. I think, as Blair said, probably 150 is the number that I'm going to circle. If I'm Arizona, my defensive game plan is stack the box and make Burmeister beat us. And if he does, okay, we lose. It is what it is. But you cannot let a run-heavy team go crazy on you. So this one is an easy buy. All right, Shane, I'll start with you for number 2. Consequently, there's no chance Arizona stays in the game if they rush for under 100 yards. Now, last year in that blowout loss, obviously, San Diego State dropped 35 in the first half, so it kind of took away the running game. Arizona had 20 carries for 51 yards. Buy or sell, Arizona must get 100 yards to win this game, to have a chance to win this game.
Another easy buy, Eric. Yeah, absolutely. That's minimum 100 yards. I'm thinking closer to that Blair's number in the previous question of 150. And certainly as well in college football where sacks count against your rushing yards. If it's under 100, that might have something to do with it. Jaden Delora can also pick up yards on the ground. They have so many great running backs. The offensive line, I think, is still a liability, or maybe it may be a liability. It's my biggest question mark going into the season, probably the biggest question mark over the last, I don't know how many seasons. But yeah, 100 at least. I think that they need to have, probably approaching 350, 400 yards total to have a chance to win. And if close to half of those don't at least half of those I think are going to have to come on the ground, because I don't think that Jayden de Laura is going to necessarily light it up in the air in this first game.
Yeah, I'm going to probably have to buy that as well. Just because it'd be hard to fathom, Arizona coming out and just throwing for 400 yards and rushing for 75 and having a great offensive output primarily through the air. Now, with that said, maybe it's not completely out of the realm. It might depend a little bit on, how San Diego State wants to defend Arizona. I think they're going to want to stop the run first. That's just kind of the way they defend. They've got a very good defensive coordinator. Again, they've got a physical defensive front. It's an experienced defensive unit. I think they try to stop the run for Arizona, make Jayden de Laura, one-dimensional and try to get after him a little bit. So Arizona's got these great options in the passing game, a lot of it unproven. Might take that passing game a little bit of time to truly get a rhythm and get in sync. So I think for Arizona, it does have to run the football. It'll make Arizona better in the red zone. It'll make it a better, team overall, especially offensively, if it can have more of a run game this year than it had last year. So I want to see Arizona run the football this week and be able to, pick up some yards, move the chains, and not just have to rely on your veteran quarterback that's transferred into the program.
I'm going to sell this one, guys. I think Arizona can use its short passing game as the equivalent of a rushing attack. I don't think 100 yards is that magic number. If the West Coast offense allows 3 and 4 yard completions, let's say, getting the tight ends involved, Alex Lyons, Kean Burnett, those, passes to the running backs, I don't think the 100-yard mark against a tough defensive front generally is a must. I think Arizona just has to move the ball. I think this one, it's in Jayden de Laura's hands. I think his success dictates this game. I really don't think the running game, to me, plays that much of a factor for Arizona. We'll see if I'm right or wrong. Michael Wiley atop the depth chart, a little bit of a surprise. DJ Williams, I think, was second or third in this.
I'll just say I'm not surprised by that, Eric. I know how much talent they have at tailback, but Wiley was a reliable guy last year, and I think, and again, just because he's the number one guy in the depth chart doesn't mean that 5-6 guys aren't going to get touches. I mean, they are deep at this position. It's the opposite of 2016 when they had to start Samaj Grant at tailback. So Wiley's at the top of the depth chart. He'll probably start the game. He'll probably get 10 touches or so, but there are going to be a lot of tailbacks they could just interchange in and out there. And to your point, a guy like Speedy Luke could easily pick up some yards through the air as well, through short screen passes, plays that are kind of run passes, but not technically, or run plays, but not technically run plays. So, but yeah, I think Wiley, the depth chart, I'm not surprised by it, but I also don't think it means a whole lot either.
Hey, Blair, you might remember this as well. Back in 2003 in the Makovic days, there was the bubble screen, was very popular. It was a very popular Arizona play. It was like they knew they didn't have the offensive line to be able to block. So let's get the ball to people in space. I know Arizona tried it last year and did some of that in the Rich Rod era. I feel like that is a key to success, especially against a team like San Diego State. Agree or disagree?
I would agree with that in general. And I think if, kind of taking your last point about getting the running back, getting a lot of that short passing game, Michael Wiley atop the depth chart at running back, he's a great pass catcher out of the backfield for a running back, and actually might be his best skill overall as a running back is getting the ball in space and being able to do things. So I can see him being a factor through the passing game as an extension of the running game there. The screen game to the running backs last year was not very good. I think every quarterback on the roster actually threw an interception on just a basic middle screen, to a running back. And I've never seen that before. I mean, Tom Brady does it in his sleep. He makes it look so easy at the professional level. It should be a part of every offense. But the running back screen game was just not very good for the Wildcats last year. Conversely, or not necessarily conversely, but to what your real question to me was, Eric, Arizona's receivers were not physical enough last year, I don't believe, on the perimeter blocking to be real effective at some of that bubble screen stuff and some of that, jailbreak screen concepts. I think with a little bit bigger, taller, more physical receiver unit, even though some of those guys are going to be young, I think there's an opportunity for the screen game, to be a more prominent factor in this offense and really be something that keeps defenses from just coming back, stopping the run and getting after the quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I just think, Shane has brought up for months that the offensive line, obviously, at least to you, Shane, is the number one concern when it comes to Arizona this season. Getting the ball out in space, you would think, could neutralize and mask some of those offensive line problems, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, and I think that having some great targets at wide receiver, a guy like T-Mac, who I know needs to work on his physicality a little bit, but is a guy who maybe you can rely on. Like if you have to get rid of the ball, maybe he's going to come down with it in a 50-50 situation, or even play defense if he has to, if it's a 2-on-1 situation. Interesting matchup to watch is going to be potentially Jacob Cowling versus Patrick McMorris, who was a senior who I think was all Mountain West last year, had 4 interceptions. San Diego State led the Mountain West with 17 picks last year, 17 takeaways through the air. So big matchup to watch there. Cowling and McMorris, potentially. I'm sure that it's not going to be an exclusive matchup, but their attempt to neutralize him, I think, is going to be big. And then how does, Tedero McMillan do? How does Dorian Singer do? How do the tight ends factor in? So if Cowling is taken away, so that's just another matchup to watch. And again, I don't want to give, I'll give away what I kind of think overall of this game already. I think it's going to be kind of sloppy. San Diego State's got a lot of new faces. They've got a new quarterback for the 4th straight year. Arizona's got a lot more talent, but they got so many young guys, so many true freshmen who could benefit from either redshirting a year or maybe just being second or third on the depth chart and getting some touches here and there. They're going to be thrown in right away. And I think it's going to be on the road, San Diego State. It's going to be tricky for a lot of reasons, but I think that's why circling back all the way to your point, Eric, I think that establishing that ground game early is going to be important. And I think 100 yards is the absolute bare minimum for them.
Number 3. This one's kind of we'll do an over under here. We're going to kind of deviate from buy or sell, because I guess we can. It's our podcast. Over under 12.5 touches for the true freshmen combined on offense. And that is Speedy Luke, T-Mac, Jonah Coleman, Kean Burnett. Blair, you taking the over or the under 12.5 combined touches? I made up that number for the true freshman on Saturday.
It's probably a pretty good number to set it at, because, depending on how that running back rotation shakes out, if, Coleman's, the second or third back and he's getting 6, 7, 8 carries, I mean, now you're already over the halfway point. And if you're targeting T-Mac 4 or 5 times in the game and Kean Burnett a few times there at tight end, you've already got the 12 touches. And so that's probably a pretty good number. But I think there's enough veteran presence on this offense that, obviously starting with Michael Wiley at running back, you've got a couple, veteran receivers, or at least, receivers that were in the program a year ago. And, Dorian Singer being one of them. The tight end Alex Lyons, I think, is probably, tight end, 1A in terms of blocking, and you can't just have him in there as a blocker. He'll have to get some touches as well. 12.5, great number to pick. I'll probably take for game 1 the under on total touches there, especially if you take out maybe special teams. But it also
offensive touches. We'll say offensive touches.
Yeah. I might just take the under, but maybe just by about 1 or 2 touches.
Okay, Shane, over under 12.5 on offense.
All right, Blair and I are finally going to disagree, because I'm going to take the over. I don't think it's going to be close. I think the freshmen are going to have to get a lot more involved. Yeah, I think so. I think that Burnett and T-Mac combined are probably good for 6, and then I can't imagine Luke and Coleman combining for fewer than 7. So wow. I think at least one of those guys. I will make a bold prediction, semi-bold prediction, that at least one of those guys, and probably just one of those guys, is going to approach double-digit touches. So I think that the over is an easy one for me here.
Wow. I'm going to go with Blair on the under here. I just don't, I see like 3 for T-Mac, like maybe 2 for Luke, maybe 2 for Coleman, and 2 for Burnett. So I'm taking a fairly easy under. I hope I'm wrong. I hope you're right, Shane. I mean, I'd love to see T-Mac at 6, 7.
Well, if you're right, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to lose.
No, it doesn't. It means it may be veterans. Maybe they have success with Michael Wiley and DJ Williams running the football.
Could be.
So, okay, interesting. Number 4, I'm going to throw this kind of a bonus one. I did not include this one in my pre-show routine, so I'm going to throw this one at you. There's some allegations swirling around the San Diego State team. I don't want to go in depth, but it doesn't sound like a very good culture. Brady Hoke obviously has condoned this. There are some that are calling for his head. I know he walked out of the press conference today, which is Monday.
Real quick, Gary. Has Brady Hoke, what do you say he's condoned it?
He's allowed it to happen, and he's not done anything. I mean, that's condoning, right? The way I look at it.
Go ahead and finish your question.
Yeah. Do you believe, or I'm going to phrase it by yourself, this will affect San Diego State on the field as far as all of the turmoil off of it? Buy or sell, Shane?
I'm going to sell it. I don't think it's going to be that big a deal when the game happens. It's probably a distraction right now as we're recording this on Monday after the presser that went wrong. That was really awkward that the Hoke and the AD leave and then the AD comes back. And I'm sure after either thinking twice or someone called him and said, you need to get back there and answer a question because this is an awful look for us. I'm sure that's a distraction. They're all hearing about it. By the end of the week, you go into your first game of the brand new stadium. I don't know if it's going to be that big a deal when it actually comes to game time. So as much as I would, I mean, this is bigger than football, obviously, but as much as I'd like to think that, it could help Arizona win, I don't necessarily think it's going to be an issue come game day.
Blair, buy or sell, this is going to be a factor on the field for San Diego State on Saturday, all of the distractions off of it.
Yeah, I think Shane nailed it in terms of it really depends if this thing continues to linger and snowball throughout the week. If more information comes out and more questions and things like that keep filtering in, to the football aspect of San Diego State this week, then it could become a distraction. But as of today, if really we don't hear more about it, if new details don't come out, which I really don't think there will be, to be quite candid with you at this point, there's not a lot anybody on any of the sides can really say with, pending investigations and litigation in civil court.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be a factor. But if something new would come up, if there'd be further developments later in the week, yeah, it might be a factor. The head coach is certainly having to, probably spend a extra 10 or 15 minutes in meetings that he wouldn't typically have in a game week or talk to people in the administration he wouldn't typically talk to during a game week like this. So, if it starts to affect the coaching schedule and some of the meetings and plannings that they're doing for game plan, yeah, it could eventually by Wednesday, Thursday, Friday have a little bit of an effect.
Here's why it's a buy for me. I think Brady Hoke, he got a second chance at San Diego State after he left for Michigan. That failed, as we all know. Is he kind of coaching for his career at this point? Obviously he's done a good job at San Diego State, but if there's turmoil around the program and obviously he's allowing this flawed culture, let's say severely flawed culture, is he concerned that this is it? Does he feel like he needs to do more as a game day coach to prove his worth? Okay, I mean, I know it's a theory. I'm buying it, though. Just a slight buy. I mean, I don't have any – it's just an opinion for me, but I think they are going to be distracted, and I think that's going to contribute. I actually agree with what Shane said earlier, that it's going to be a sloppy game on Saturday. Now, we'll give our picks at the end of the show, but I really see that sloppiness kind of playing a part in it from San Diego State's side. For Arizona, they have a lot of new players. For San Diego State, I know they lost some. There's some folks that left, or some players that left, but as far as I'm concerned, this is a big distraction. I mean, all the stuff that's come out over the last few weeks obviously has to play a part. Okay, last one related to Arizona, number 5. Blair, I'll start with you. Arizona getting blown out, similar to the way that they did in the second game of 2021, would be a detriment to their 2022 season in terms of progress. That if they were to get blown out on Saturday, we just kind of lose all that momentum that has been built over the last 9 months. Buy or sell?
I would buy it in the short term in terms of what your immediate reaction would be to it. Sort of what my reaction is to Nebraska losing to Northwestern last week. I mean, it almost has the feel of a must-win game for the Cornhuskers last week in Dublin, Ireland, and then they kind of lose in the same fashion they've always lost in. Yet in a few weeks time, Nebraska will get to play Oklahoma, and if somehow they're in Lincoln, Nebraska, the Cornhuskers can upset Oklahoma, then I think that first game for Nebraska would be forgotten. Arizona will have an opportunity the following week at home with a very good Mississippi State team to perhaps reverse course very early in the season. But depending on, if it's a replay of last year's game and Arizona is inept offensively early, the defense can't stop anything, you get beat 38 to 14 or whatever last year's score finally became, I think there'd be reason to be concerned, particularly offensively, when you're stable at quarterback, you've got a pretty good idea of the game plan going in, offensively at least. And if you can't put up points, at least even get up into the 20s, 3 touchdowns or more in a game like this, I think that could be a real, point of pause, much like we had it a few times last year of, is this the right coaching staff for this team?
I want to turn to the Mutual Admiration Society, but I completely agree with what Blair said. I think in the short term, certainly it could be a demoralizing, but long term, if they get blown out at San Diego State, they come back and they pull an upset over Mississippi State, no one's going to care. So I think that's important to consider. To Blair's point, though, I think there are a lot of there are players on this team who played the last couple of years, last year or the last couple of years at Arizona. I think there's this mentality of what's going to go wrong. What's going to happen now? It's like I remember, when this team got to the 1 yard line a couple of times last year, even the year before that, we're thinking, how are we going to find a way not to score? I think that mentality sort of got into the players' heads too. It's like, how are we going to screw this up? So I think that might creep in a little bit for some of the guys who have been there before. For the newer guys, I don't think it's necessarily going to be that big a deal, considering they have so many new guys, transfers, and freshmen on this team. I don't think it's going to be that big. Now, I mean, if they get blown out each of their first 3 non-conference games, then you could maybe start to push the panic button. But they get their clock cleaned week 1 at San Diego State, and look, we'll make our picks later, but I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. And I still think that they could have a decent season because they have so many new faces and so many new young faces. It's really just remarkable the amount of turnover on this year's team, and it's for the better, but it may take a while to see that. So no, I don't think it'd be the end of the world if they got blown out. Certainly wouldn't be ideal. Hopefully we'd see at least a close game, but it's one game, and look, they're not winning the national championship this year. So there's still time to right the ship.
Come on, Shane, be optimistic. Right. National champions until they lose a game.
I don't want Bama, Eric.
Yeah, that's right. Bring on Bama. All right. So my take on this is kind of complicated. I was doing some reading today, and I was reading some of the Mississippi State papers about their projections for the season. And everybody says about next week's game, it's going to be tough. It's a late start, going out west. Arizona's first home game, new momentum, Mike Leach going back to the Pac-12. Kind of what I've been telling you, Shane. Not that they're picking against Mississippi State, but there's this optimism that, like, Arizona can win this game against an SEC team, right?
Maybe trap game from their perspective, maybe.
Right. I mean, they got LSU the week after that.
Sure.
They're playing Memphis this week, a team that beat them last year. It is kind of a tricky game. But to Blair's point, if they get blown out like they did last year, all of my goodwill of saying they're going to give Mississippi State a hell of a game, hell, I might pick them next week. That's out the window. If Arizona gives up 35 in the first half against San Diego State or something comparable like they did in 2021, I'm going Bulldogs by 21 next week. I'll
remember that. I'll file that one away.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope that doesn't happen. I really want to pick Arizona to win that game. This is a key for Jed Fish's coaching, as Blair also said. Let's see what he can do. I have doubts. I mean, they won one game last year. Shane and I haven't seen a victory. Now, the one game I missed last year, Blair, was the Cal game. It's the one home game I've missed outside of 2020 since 2006. I haven't seen a home win since 2019. I have my doubts about Jed Fish. As his coaching, I love his recruiting and everything. Let's see what happens on the field this week. We'll go from there. All right. A couple of non-U of A things we're going to do here in Buy or Sell. Blair or Shane, I'll start with you for this one. The Heisman Trophy. We have to make our national predictions here. Heisman Trophy will be won by someone not named C.J. Stroud from Ohio State or Bryce Young from Alabama.
I will buy that just because how often has the favorite or favorites, how often have they actually gone in on wire to wire to win the Heisman? So I'll make a bold prediction. I think the Heisman's going to be won by someone we're not even talking about right now. Now, there are a lot of other names. No, well, I'll give a couple. Well, there's a couple that I think we are talking about, but
okay.
There are a lot of other quarterbacks who could emerge. If our guy Mark May last week thinks USC is in the top 4, if he's right, could be Caleb Williams at USC. Maybe Quinn Ewers with Texas. Speaking of Texas, maybe Tucson native Bijan Robinson. Maybe he gets in the mix. I don't think that's going to happen necessarily. It's really tough for a non-quarterback to win it, but I think it'll be someone else just because the odds to me suggest that it will be.
Blair, Stroud or Bryce Young, or are you taking the field?
I'm going to take the field actually as well. And I'm going to go a little bit off the wall here with my prediction because I still think it'll be an Alabama player. And I'm actually going to go to the defensive side of the ball, which is unprecedented. I'm going to go with Will Anderson.
I like it.
From the defensive side of the ball. I think because Bryce Young's already got his Heisman Trophy, if Alabama's the best team in the country again this year, I think Alabama will do everything it can essentially to make Will Anderson the first, true defensive player to win the Heisman. I know Desmond Howard did, but he was also a special teams player back in the 90s. So I think Will Anderson is the guy that could break the trend of modern football.
Yeah, and Ndamukong Suh, the year that Arizona played them in the Holiday Bowl was close, but I think he finished second. Charles Woodson won at 97, but he played some offense, as you say. I mean, for the most part, he was a defensive player.
I said Desmond Howard. I meant Charles Woodson.
Charles Woodson, yeah.
But and remember our guy Scooby, he firmly believes that if Arizona had played an earlier time slot, that he would have been invited to the Heisman ceremony that year.
I mean, he was as good. Obviously, he was the best defensive player.
He won some national awards, yeah.
I'm going off the radar here. My Heisman Trophy winners a 50-1 long shot. Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's a wide receiver for Ohio State, put up 300 and something yards in the Rose Bowl against a good Utah team. And this was an Ohio State team that really wasn't even trying. Had guys sit out. I think he's that good. So I'm going a long shot there. Another team that I want to look at, Devin Leary, 80-1 shot from NC State. I really think they're good. I don't trust Clemson. I like NC State to win the ACC. And I think Leary at 80-1, might get an invite. But I really like Blair's pick. I don't know if I'm buying the Caleb Williams thing, Shane, but that's okay.
I don't know if I am either. I'm just throwing out names because other than those two.
We're all going against the two favorites. All right. The last one here in this segment, the college football playoff is going to be Ohio State, Alabama, and two other teams. Do you buy or sell? And then I want to know who the two other teams are. Blair, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm going to take Alabama and Ohio State as the two best teams coming into the season. I think Ohio State's, probably got its best team in a long time. Alabama's Alabama. I think you just throw them in the mix because of Nick Saban, and they just reload every single year. Other two teams I'm going to take, you just mentioned Clemson. I know you're down on them, Eric, but I'm going to take them. I think they're stacked on the defensive side of the ball this year. I don't think DJ Uiagalelei can be as bad as he was last year. The offensive line out there at Clemson was young and inexperienced last year, but they're going to be, they got everybody back. They don't take the transfers like a lot of places do. That's just not in Dabo's, kind of DNA. He does it the Clemson way. I think last year they still won 10 games. They've got, I think it's a 6-game win streak, from the end of last season. That's actually one of the longest carryover win streaks in the country. I think with their defense, I think with DJ at quarterback, a better offensive line, a better running game, and a manageable schedule out there in the ACC, I think Clemson gets back to the playoff. The other team I'm going to take because of a very manageable schedule in the SEC is Georgia. And I know we kind of just recycle these same teams all the time. Yep. I just think you look at Georgia's schedule, it'll give them enough time to reload on the defensive side of the ball. They've got a quarterback that's just not going to beat himself. I just have a hard time seeing Georgia not get back to the SEC championship game this year and, maybe get in the playoff.
Shane, Alabama, Ohio State, and who else?
Yeah, Bama and Ohio State. I wish I could be provocative and say, no, neither of them or one of them is not going to make it, but I can't get there. I also think Clemson probably bounces back and sneaks in. I don't know about Georgia. In terms of SEC teams, here's a name. How about Texas A&M? I think they're a team that maybe could sneak into the top four. They're, I don't know. You're the odds guy, Eric. Are they what,
16-1 to win the SEC?
To win the SEC? That's not. I mean, it's not their own possibility.
But can they get in though, Shane, without winning their division?
That's the other question. Well, yeah, that's the other question too. So, but yeah, I think A&M. I don't know if I would pick A&M. Basically, I'm saying I'm not sure about Georgia this year. I have a feeling they're going to take a step back. A&M, maybe Utah is a team that could get in. If they probably have to go at least 12-1, if not 13-0 to get in. But yeah, so Bama, Ohio State, Clemson, and then for now, I'll just go ahead and throw in Texas A&M.
I like it. I'm going to go Ohio State and Alabama, so I'm going to buy this one. My third team is Georgia. I think we're going to see Ohio State and Georgia in the Fiesta Bowl. I think we're going to see Alabama and Utah in the Peach Bowl as a semifinal. I'm big on the Utes. As the summer's gone along, I'm buying. So you know what we're going to talk about in the next segment when we bring up their game against an SEC team on the road in week 1. But I'm going to go. I'll give my national championship pick first. I'm going Ohio State over Alabama. Just have a feeling that this is the year. Shane, your national championship prediction.
Bama over Ohio State. I mean, how often does Bama not win it at least once every 2 years? Just that's it. Just as simple as that for me.
Same. I like this Ohio State team, but I'm going to go with Alabama over Ohio State.
It's a safe pick. Coming up next, let's do our week 1 game predictions. We've waited, 9 months to do these? Shane's kicked my butt the last 2 years. Blair gave us a run when he did it with us last year. Let's see what he can do in week 1 here on Wildcat Country. Scooby, we sent you an ice shaker. They are a sponsor, courtesy of our buddy Chris Gronkowski. You have it right there.
I love my ice shaker. Fun fact, I trained with Glenn Gronkowski. Everybody, when we were trained together, people thought I was I was the other Gronk brother, so it's kind of funny. But yes, I love my ice shaker. It is very good. I use it every day. I am a veteran to the ice shaker game, by the way.
What's up, Wildcat Country? Chris Grakowski here. Use coupon code Wildcat Country at iceshaker.com.
Well, we're on to game picks finally. It took us, as I like to say, 9 months or longer since we've made a pick. Shane's kicked my butt in the 2 years that we've done this show, so it's time for revenge. So I'm keeping track of everything this year. We'll have records. We'll go through it all. Also, you can check out, I do a gambling picks column at sportsline.com. Check that out, sportsline.com. It's free for everyone. Go to the analysis section, college football, and then you'll see my picks where I'm giving away a Pac-12 parlay among other conferences, and Arizona is included. And Shane and I already tipped what my pick is for that Arizona game, but we'll get more to that later. But all right, guys, we have, I think I have 11 games here on the docket. Let's go through the first 10 quickly, then we can break it down for Arizona, San Diego State. Shane, I'll start with you. Pittsburgh is a 7.5-point favorite against West Virginia. The backyard brawl is back. Who are you taking against the spread?
First of all, Eric, I think whoever wins between you and I this year overall should win rights to that column of yours. But we'll talk about that more later.
Deal. Okay.
I know. Is it Desmond Howard thinks Pitt's going to make the college football playoff?
I believe his picks are ridiculous.
Yeah, well, so I'm not quite that high on Pitt, but I do like them to win and cover at home. I like Keaton Slovis to fit right in and make some big plays.
Blair, Pittsburgh, West Virginia, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Shane. I'm going to take Pitt, but I'll tell you, I want this to be a good game. I mean, as long as I've been a college football fan, I always loved, the backyard brawl. It seemed like some classic games. I know Rich Rodriguez, one of his most disappointing moments as a head coach, came in a heartbreaking loss in this rivalry when he was still at West Virginia. But for this matchup, I think Pitt's really strong on each of the lines. I'm going to go with the Panthers at home.
All right, fun little tidbit about this game. Quarterback for West Virginia, JT Daniels. Quarterback for Pitt, Keaton Slovis. Keaton Slovis took over when JT Daniels got hurt at USC. I love that 7.5. I love getting the points. I know in a rivalry game, give me West Virginia plus the points. I think Pitt wins going to be close. So I'm going to disagree with both of you. Take West Virginia against the spread. Game that I really like, another Thursday night game. First one was Thursday night. This one is as well. Penn State at Purdue, who is getting 3.5 points as an underdog. I like Purdue to win the game outright. Shane, Purdue or Penn State on Thursday night?
Yeah, both teams have returning quarterbacks. They both lost their top targets from last season. Easy for me to say. Pretty simple for me, though. I think Penn State's a better team. I think they're good enough to win by at least 4 points, even on the road.
Blair?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good matchup. Two teams that are probably feeling really good about themselves going into the year. This would obviously be a huge win for Purdue, a team that seems to pull 1 or 2 upsets a year lately. I just think top to bottom of the roster, Penn State's a little bit better. I'll take Penn State here.
Boy, I disagree with both of you on the first two. Wow, how about that? Next one, this is one of 3 ranked versus ranked matchups this week, which is kind of surprising. Cincinnati, who was in the Final Four last year, at Arkansas, who is favored by 6. Blair, who you got? Arkansas -6 or Cincinnati +6?
Yeah, very interesting matchup here because I think everybody wants to see how good Cincinnati can be based off their really historic season they had a year ago. Arkansas has been trending upward, had a great year. Not real sure what Arkansas is going to be in the SEC, but being at home, I'm going to give the Razorbacks by 7 and they'll cover.
Shane?
Once again, Blair and I agree. I'll take Arkansas to cover. They lost some key guys from last year, but I like KJ Jefferson. I think they'll do enough to win and cover at home.
Boy, this is scary. I'm taking Cincinnati. I think Arkansas wins. I think Cincinnati loses by 3 or 4 points. Just going with that. Okay. The biggest game of the weekend, College Game Day, is there. Notre Dame at Ohio State. I think we all agree that Ohio State's going to win, but they're giving away 17.5 points, Blair. It feels like too much to me. I like Notre Dame with the spread.
Yeah, it's kind of a pretty high line, but I think you go back to some of the, if we're thinking Ohio State's a national title contender, you look the way Notre Dame has played some of the times when they've been in the playoff as the 4 seed. Some of those games haven't been that close. I think it's a big statement game for Ohio State's new defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles. I think Ohio State comes out just clicking on all cylinders and runs away with this one. I think they'll cover the 17.5.
Shane?
Once again, you and I disagree, Eric, and Blair and I agree. New coach, new quarterback for Notre Dame. Ohio State's got the Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback. They're playing at home. It's a lot. It's a big spread, but I think the Buckeyes find a way to cover.
Florida State, who started in week 0, played some no-name team and won by a lot, goes to LSU. Actually, they go to the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans to take on LSU and Brian Kelly's first game with the Tigers. LSU is giving 3 points to Florida State. LSU or Florida State, Shane?
Against my better judgment, I kind of like Florida State in this one. There's been so much turnover on the LSU roster, and I think this is a make or break year for Mike Norvell. I think he'll have his guys ready.
Blair?
Yeah, I maybe for the first time, I've got to go not so fast on Shane. I think it's a good matchup. It's going to tell a lot about both of these teams, but it's LSU. They still got players. Brian Kelly, it's going to be an important first game for him. So I think the Tigers can cover this one.
This is a battle of former ASU folks. Let's say Mike Norvell, former ASU offensive coordinator at Florida State. Jaden Daniels, likely the starting quarterback for LSU. I'm going to go with Blair. I'm going to take LSU. Close game, but I think they can cover 3 points. A virtual home game for them in New Orleans. Okay, the Pac-12. This is a risky one for the Pac-12. So Dan Lanning used to be Georgia's defensive coordinator. Now he's Oregon's head coach. They're traveling to Atlanta, and they're playing Georgia at a neutral site game. Georgia is favored by 17 over Oregon. Shane, is that too many points for Georgia to give away?
Yeah, first of all, this is neutral site in air quotes, but
Yes.
yeah, I think Georgia's probably still a 10-win team, even though I didn't pick him to make the college football playoff. For some reason, I think Georgia's going to struggle a little bit out of the gate as well. I think Oregon's got a lot to prove after losing yet another head coach. Like you said, the new guy knows Georgia pretty well. I think Georgia wins. I think Oregon keeps it under 17 points.
Blair?
Yeah, this is sort of a tough one because maybe this could get away late on the Ducks. Just being in Georgia, it's kind of a semi-home game or pretty much a de facto home game. I think it's a pretty competitive game early. I don't think Oregon's going to be able to keep up with it though, but I think they keep it within the spread. So I'll take the points with Oregon.
Well, I finally agree with Shane and you, Blair. I'm taking Oregon. I think it's just too many points to give away in an opening week game. I think Oregon, new coach, enthusiasm. Bo Nix, if he's the starter, former Auburn quarterback, he knows Georgia's scheme. I think it's a 10-point game-ish. I think Georgia wins, but Oregon makes it competitive. The game that I'm really intrigued by this week, Utah is a 3-point favorite on the road against Billy Napier and Florida in the Swamp. I'm taking Utah. I think Utah wins by about a touchdown, though the Utes aren't very good in the road openers, apparently. Shane, who you got?
Yeah, this could be a very early college football playoff elimination game of sorts. I think both teams are sort of dark horses to make the top 4, maybe Utah more so than Florida. Utah having Cam Rising and Tavion Thomas back is massive. Their defense reloaded pretty well despite losing a pair of top linebackers. So despite having to make the trip across the country, I like the Utes to win and cover.
Blair?
Yeah, fascinating game. I really think this, to me, is the most intriguing matchup of the entire weekend, personally.
Yeah.
I would love to see Utah win for the Pac-12, and really just for, every non-SEC conference in general. It'd be great to see a team go in to the SEC and win this game. I just think that's really tough. I mean, going into the Swamp, we're not real sure what Florida's going to do with Billy Napier. There's a lot of questions there, but it's Florida. It's the Swamp. Utah starts slowly. It seems like almost every year. As much as I want the Pac-12 to get a big win in a game like this, I think it's a really tough task with all the expectations that Utah has on it this season to go into the Swamp where you're favored. I mean, they're favored going into the Swamp. Not many teams do that, especially from out west. So I think Florida finds a way to win this one.
Interesting. All right, we'll go through these next two quickly. I don't have a lot of analysis on TCU minus 10.5 at Colorado. Sonny Dykes, former Arizona offensive coordinator, taking over at TCU, taking Colorado plus 10.5. I think TCU wins by a field goal, maybe. Blair, you agree?
Yeah, I love Sonny Dykes first and foremost. He was great when he was the offensive coordinator at Arizona, and it was always great to me whenever I talked to him at Pac-12 Media Days when he was with Cal and so forth. I did see, though, today he said they might play 3 quarterbacks in this game against Colorado. So they've got some decision-making to make there. I think TCU wins, but I think it's closer than the 10.5. So I'll take Colorado.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my original pick, but listening to the two of you, I'm tempted to change it, but I'm not. But, both teams got a lot of changes. I mean, Colorado also is a complete overhaul in both players and staff, similar to what Arizona just went through. I think they'll be better by season's end, Colorado, but I don't see them being very competitive. I think TCU is going to cover on the road.
Rice at USC. USC is given 34.5. Just had to mention this because it's Lincoln Riley's first game in Southern California. That's a lot of points. I'll take Rice plus a 34.5. Shane?
Yeah, it's tough. These kinds of lines are tough because USC could dominate and Rice could score a couple meaningless touchdowns and lose by like 54-21, right? But I think USC is that much better at home. I think they'll find a way to cover.
Blair?
I'm taking the cover. I think they're going to run away with this one.
Do you guys really? Wow, that's surprising. To me, I look at that and I say, I mean, I don't know anything about Rice, let's be honest, but that just seems like a lot of points. Okay, now this one I had marked wrong, so I want to get this one right. Oregon State is a 3-point favorite against Boise State at home. Shane, I'm going to start with you. Does Oregon State cover and win in covered home, or do they lose the game outright?
Either way, I'm going to go with the Beavers. I'm going to take them to cover. I really like what Jonathan Smith has done there. Corvallis is not an easy place to win at. Boise State has a decent returning quarterback. Oregon State returns a lot of starters too. I like their defense. I think they get off to a strong start, and I think that if Utah and Oregon falter, that's maybe this is a marquee non-conference win for the Pac-12 in week 1.
Blair?
Yeah, really good matchup. I think both of these teams are probably have their best teams in the last few years. If Boise State's getting points going into Corvallis, I might take them with that line.
They are getting points. Yeah, they're getting 3.
Oregon State, I think they went undefeated at home last year.
They did.
Maybe it's time that home field winning streak gets snapped with a very hungry Boise State team. Sometimes we forget how important these games are to Boise State. I'll take the Broncos to either win outright or at least keep it below 3.
That's a great stat about Oregon State going undefeated at home last year. I think that is not the case in 2022. I'm taking Boise State outright. I think Boise State is improved from last season. I think they win in Corvallis, close game, but I think they win the game outright. Okay, now on to the biggest game of the weekend. It's a CBS game. Can you believe that? CBS at 12:30 Arizona time. I will be there at Snapdragon Stadium, assuming the McHale Center ticket office ever gets me the tickets that I apparently have paid for. So we'll see. It's as of Monday night. Still haven't gotten them. Okay. That's just beside the point. All right, Blair, give us your analysis on the game. San Diego State is a 6-point favorite. Tell us who you like against the spread. And if you can give us a score prediction, that'd be great as well.
Yeah, Eric, I'm excited for this. I mean, it's probably the most intriguing start of an Arizona football season in a few years, at least going back to pre-COVID. I think there's a lot of optimism and probably a lot of reason to be optimistic. Certainly the roster has been overhauled. I have some concerns. I think Shane mentioned, and maybe even you, Eric, about the offensive line. It's much the same personnel. I do think they're a little bit bigger and stronger up front this year. They're more experienced. I think they might have a little more depth going into the season. I'm going to be really curious how the offensive line plays to see how that allows the coaching staff to utilize its playmakers and for Jaden Delore to try to get comfortable. I think it's going to be a sloppy game, like you both mentioned earlier as well. That first quarter, especially, sort of like the BYU game was last year, there's a lot of feeling out in these types of games. It's a home game for San Diego State, but it's also the first time they're playing in this stadium too. So it's not going to be necessarily familiar for them. So I think there's a lot of feeling out early in this game. I think the team that is able to just settle in and play football like it's midseason, the team that does that the quickest, I think will win this game. If I had to pick a pick, I think Arizona's going to win the game outright personally. I think it's about a 28-24 type game. I think it's back and forth. I think the heat is going to play a big factor. It's going to be in the 90s probably at kickoff. That field temperature will probably be in the hundreds down there on the surface. I think conditioning could come into play. And I think Arizona, while it's not a very deep team, I think it's deeper than it was last year. I think it has a lot to prove. And I may not say everything for the rest of the season, but I think Arizona comes out and plays a pretty solid first football game. Even though it might be sloppy early, I think it plays a pretty solid first football game. And Arizona, Tucson, has a lot of reason for optimism when they come home the following week.
Ooh, Blair picking the upset. Shane, San Diego State -6 at home, new stadium. What happens?
Yeah, I don't think this game's going to be a blowout. I think it'll be a little bit ugly early on with a lot of new pieces for both teams. Arizona's a lot more talented, but they're so young. I don't think they're going to hit the ground running, especially against a decent team on the road. I agree with your prediction on taking the under in this game. But I think San Diego State has a bit more experience. They're playing at home. I think they'll shake off the distractions and win, and probably win by at least a touchdown.
All right, taking San Diego State to cover the spread. I'll tell you what, Shane, I gave it away in that sports line column. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I know Blair has the over. I think the over-under is 46.5. It's going down. We'll see what it does later in the week. I think this one's going to be a little sloppy, as we all said. First game of the year, you never know what to expect. I really want to pick Arizona to win. I'm not there yet. I think it's going to be close. I think Arizona covers that 6-point spread. I've said that for months. The game feels like a 21-17 San Diego State win. So just not feeling it. The momentum will not be gone from the season, as we talked about in our first segment, but I'm just not feeling the win. So Blair's picking them out right, 28-24. Shane's saying San Diego State by a touchdown. I say San Diego State 21-17. Blair, thank you so much for joining Shane and I. It's been great having you on. We look forward to having you on again. For Blair Willis and Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. It's game week. We're back. And as always, bear down.